if you have not seen Ryan Grimm and Aaron Maté have gotten into a little I don't like the word beef. They've had like a little back and forth. They have really intercepted, so to speak, on Twitter. And it was because of an announcement that Ryan Grimm made. So let me go ahead and share this, because I was surprised to see this. And it says that The Intercept has appointed an inaugural CEO, and we're announcing a new board of directors. We're going fully independent. It's a gamble, and we'll be relying on readers to support what we do. So this was shocking news. So for those who did not know, The Intercept is not independent. They are funded by, at least I know, one billionaire for certain. But this is one of the things that Glenn Greenwald had talked about this before, that, in the beginning when he started The Intercept, he thought it would be a good idea to have that backing from the billionaires, because they can really help them get the resources and everything that they need to get up and going. But then later on, he realized like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best thing. So now The Intercept is going independent. So this was huge. And they actually have an article here where they announced this. And so it says The Intercept appoints inaugural CEO and announces new board of directors. So let me go in here. I'm just going to read this first part. The Intercept is pleased to announce that Annie Chabel will be its inaugural chief executive officer, and Nobel Prize winning journalist Maria Ressa and Omidyar Group Managing Director Pat Kristen will join its new board of directors. Let's remember these names, okay? Annie Chabel, Maria Ressa, Omidyar is Pierre Omidyar, Managing Group Director Pat Kristen. But remember Pierre's name as well, because I'm going to show you something with that. And then it goes on to talk about Annie's talents and experience. It says here, Maria and Pat will play a crucial role in The Intercept's future development as the organization continues to diversify its funding sources and support the brand of hard-hitting journalism that has made our newsroom one of the most impactful of the past 9 years. Their tenacious leadership through moments of crisis and dedication to serving vulnerable communities seamlessly aligns with our mission. It's truly a privilege to count on their counsel during this consequential phase in our organization's life. So that was, the announcement there. It's a longer article. You can read more of that if you want. And so Aaron stepped in and he said, this post says that The Intercept's inaugural CEO comes from a group funded by its owner, Omidyar, as do the two new members of the board of directors, one of whom is Omidyar's senior advisor. Yet you're saying that The Intercept is going fully independent from Omidyar, and he sends that little the emoji that does this, the emoji that goes like that emoji. So, I mean, that's a really good point, because it's like basically what Aaron's trying to say is that how is this 100% going to be 100% independent if the organization that's going to be connected to the board member or the board of directors is still Omidyar's organization, and Omidyar is a billionaire. He helped fund The Intercept. So that's what Aaron's trying to figure out here, is like, how is that going to be fully independent if you're still attached to him in some way, shape, or form? Now, yes, it's that emoji. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you. It's that emoji. So it goes on to say, so of course, Ryan did respond. And he replied with a response that he sent to someone else, which says, that's fair, though I wouldn't call that dependent either. So Pierre will probably represent less than 10% of giving after the drawdown. So let's go on here. So I think, I don't know who this is. A drunken unicorn says, so you're speaking out both sides of your mouth then. He goes on to say, no, we're becoming a legally independent outlet, and Pierre is significantly drawing down funding. It's possible he remains a donor at some small level. We're not against taking some of his money if it's on offer, but for 90%, for 90+% of our support, we'll be looking elsewhere. So that's not fully independent. It doesn't matter if it's 10% or I don't know what to say here. Like, it doesn't matter if it's 10%, 15%. Like, if you're still receiving funding from Pierre, who again is a billionaire, then you're not fully independent. Fully independent is like me. Like, I have no donors. I don't have sponsors, none of that. If I did, you'd see them pop up. Like, I'd have to announce them on here. But like, I don't have any of that. Those of us like at RBN, we don't have it. It's just us. Like, there's no Frank said 90% independent. I just don't. Yeah. So Aaron goes on. Oh boy, let me do the show other replies first. Okay. Drunken unicorn chimes back in, but let's get back to this part here. So Aaron replies and says, in other words, The Intercept is not going fully independent. Won't be holding my breath for coverage of stories like the OPCW scandal or Pierre's scam network of disinformation watchdogs. We're going to get into that in just a second. And he retweeted this tweet of his here, where he said, pretty impressive how many scam neocon disinformation projects The Intercept owner Pierre is behind. The source for AP's Russiagate propaganda is Reset, a London-based nonprofit that studies social media's impact on democracy. Reset is funded by Pierre. Now, I wanted to point this out because I've talked to you about this before on the show about nonprofits, and I told you that nonprofits are not really what you think they are sometimes. Some of these nonprofits are actually funded by billionaires and millionaires. So there's still that corporate interest attached to it in some way, shape, or form, even though they're a nonprofit. So we've talked about this before on the show. Now let me go back here. Oh, actually, let me show you this. Sorry. He was referring to this article from AP. This was the article that talked about pro-Moscow Twitter accounts tried to steer America's online conversation about last month's train derailment in Ohio. The accounts posted misleading claims and anti-U.S. propaganda designed to spread fear about the toxic spill and mock the U.S. response. So I don't know if you guys heard this, but they're now trying to make it seem like people who are criticizing the U.S. government's lack of response to the victims in East Palestine, Ohio, are pro-Moscow accounts. They've really gone this far. It's insane. It's crazy. Let's go back because there's more. So Aaron goes on to say, Reset is a program of Luminate Projects Limited. Luminate Projects Limited is a UK limited company, registration number 124338857, owned by Luminate, founded by, again, the Omidyar Group, a US-based philanthropic network. That's another thing I want to point out. Philanthropies. I'm going to show you a video clip about these philanthropies that Pierre donates to, because even with philanthropies, charities, you have to be careful, because one of the things we've explained to people before at RBN is that charity and mutual aid is not the same thing. Charities are a top-down organization, and you can donate money to a charity and actually have that money attached to something else. You also get a tax write-off when you donate to charity. So it's not like the billionaires don't get any type of return on their investment, so to speak. And you have to look into some of these philanthropies and these charities and see who else they are attached to, because sometimes your money's not going where you think it's going. This is one of the reasons why I stopped donating to the Red Cross, because I found out that most of that money actually wasn't going to help people in need. And he sends screenshots here. So it says reset. And then that's the information that he just put there about what that program is. And then he has a screenshot here where he says, regularly spewing anti-US propaganda, the accounts show how easily authoritarian states and Americans willing to spread their propaganda can exploit social media platforms like Twitter in an effort to steer domestic discourse. The accounts were identified by Reset, a London-based nonprofit that studies social media's impact on democracy, and shared with the university, excuse me, I got university on the brain. I'm putting words in that don't even belong. Sorry. And shared with the Associated Press. So Pierre is somewhat involved in some of these disinformation campaigns. He goes on to say, Pierre illuminates other neocon scam endeavors include funding the ISD global report that accused me, which is Aaron, of spreading disinformation on Syria without offering a single example or piece of evidence. And he retweets that tweet going back to June of 2022, where he says, he called this out when he was smeared. The ISD Syria campaign study is funded by a German government org, and Luminate Strategic Initiatives. Luminate is funded by Pierre, the billionaire oligarch who owns The Intercept, which has consistently whitewashed the Syria Dirty War OPCW scandal. And he shows screenshots here as well. And this is true. I remember this. See, this was June 2022. This is a project by the Syria campaign, powered by ISD research and support. You know what I just thought about reading this? I guess Aaron is getting his practice for the Twitter files. I think he's getting his practice with the screenshots. But it shows the Syria campaign here. And then it says the views expressed in this publication are not necessarily those of Frederick Ebert and Stiftung. And then there's another screenshot that he shares. I want to show this as well. And it says Luminate, founded by the Omidyar Group. So, I mean, he has receipts for all of this. Let me just go back here. Yeah. And then everyone's like, you're fantastic. Wow. Yeah. So, this was the point that Aaron was trying to make. If you announce that your, publication is going to be fully independent, well, then what does that really mean? Right? Like, are you, and that's what Ryan said. So to that credit, I think maybe it wasn't a good idea to say we're going fully independent. Maybe say we are going to become more independent. See, vocabulary is important, because if you say stuff like this to people and you say, oh yeah, we're 100% this or we're fully that, then people are going to hold you to that. So I think maybe Ryan should change the wording there. But I'm just keeping it real. Sorry. And yeah. And then there's Indie Left News. So Indie Left News said this, and it was actually Indie Left who brought to my attention this information about Pierre. Now I'm going to show you a little bit here about that. Oh, wait, I have one more from Aaron. He wasn't done. Sorry. Here's another part. He said, this really is news. The Intercept has appointed Maria Ressa to its board of directors. Ressa was also recently appointed chairperson at Move Democracy, a project of the National Endowment for Democracy, a U.S. government-funded intel front. Congrats to all. Yeah, he retweeted Ryan here because Ryan said, I don't know how long they went on for, but Ryan said, yes, I buried the Maria Ressa news. And he pointed out here where he mentioned this in the article that Maria is the co-founder and CEO of Rappler leading investigative news site. And he mentions like her Nobel Peace Prize and all of that information. But I guess what, I'm sorry, let me go back. What Aaron was pointing out was that this is the piece that's missing. So yeah, this is why I say you have to follow the money. You really do. I mean, or just be careful with vocabulary. Like I said, maybe not say fully independent, just maybe say like we're becoming more independent, because people will hold you to that. They will. Now, who is Pierre? Let's see.
If you're a billionaire, you can influence a lot of things and a lot of people with your money. And one of those things is politics. Money in politics concerns a lot of people on the left and the right, especially when billionaires' bucks flow through shadowy groups, some of them supposedly charitable organizations. You've probably heard of billionaires George Soros and Charles Koch. You know about Mark Zuckerberg, inventor of Facebook. Now, meet Pierre Omidyar, founder of eBay and one of the biggest money men quietly using the charitable sector to fund his pet political causes.
See, this is what he's actually doing. Like, yeah, he has these charities, he has philanthropies, but it's all connected to politics. And I think you guys are going to want to hear this. It's politically attached.
Mega donor Omidyar founded eBay in 1995. Since then, his net worth has skyrocketed to an estimated $6.6 billion. As Omidyar's wealth has increased, so has his financial support of some of the most extreme leftist political causes. Some of the things Omidyar has directly or indirectly funded include the so-called Media Democracy Fund, which aims to restrict free speech rights, the Center for Secure...
Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I need to go back. Sorry, I just wanted to pause it at this piece right here. The Media Democracy Fund.
Or indirectly funded include the so-called Media Democracy Fund, which aims to restrict free speech rights.
That's important. Media Democracy Fund aims to restrict free speech. So you see, sometimes like if you listen to these foundations and you just look at the title, something like Media Democracy sounds okay, right? Like, yeah, democracy for the media. But if you don't dig a little bit deeper, you don't see what these organizations are really about. Why should we support anyone who wants to restrict free speech? And Pierre, this is someone who supports Democrat politicians, right? He supports those causes. Why would you be against free speech? I don't know what to say, man. It's just, again, like, if you're in journalism, you should be opposed to that, if anything.
The Center for Secure and Modern Elections, a pop-up that helped Mark Zuckerberg funnel $350 million into local election offices, effectively privatizing the 2020 election. The 2020 Census Project, likely part of the left's strategy to boost 2020 census data for blue states. And the Trusted Elections Fund, spawned to counter supposed Republican post-election day violence and silence disputes regarding election results after a Biden victory. Omidyar takes advantage of the uniquely American charitable sector that grants tax exemption to nonprofits.
Yep.
While charities were arguably never meant to fund politics outright, Omidyar and other leftist money men have been using the sector to do just that. And their investment has had serious consequences.
George Soros is another one who does this as well.
The Omidyar Nexus is Capital Research Center's name for the roughly half-dozen groups Omidyar funds and leads in the San Francisco Bay Area. These groups include nonprofits that poured out over $1.2 billion between 2004 and 2020, most of it over the past few election cycles.
There you go. And when people say nonprofits, oh, it's nonprofit, they don't make a profit. They make a profit. They make a profit.
Much of Omidyar's funding has gone to the concept of reimagining capitalism. The goal is to rebalance structural power between workers and the owners of capital. The irony here is that the money used to criticize capitalism is generated by the same capitalist system it professes to hate.
Exactly. And this is why I say you cannot reform capitalism. You can't. It just, part of the definition of capitalism involves having people be exploited at the bottom. It involves some types of exploitation, right? So the people who are able to become billionaires, usually they didn't get there just because they were good people. Usually they got there because someone along the way in one of these businesses that they had was being exploited. And they took a lot of that wealth and kept it for themselves instead of distributing it evenly among the workers. Reimagine capitalism.
Omidyar Network LLC operates alongside Omidyar Network Fund, a private foundation that has paid out roughly 3/4 of the Nexus's grants since 2004. The foundation bankrolls many apolitical organizations focused on public health and tech. But it has also funneled close to $8 million to New Venture Fund, the flagship of Arabella Advisors' famous $1.7 billion dark money activist network. Donors choose the Arabella network for one reason alone: to quietly fund politics behind the scenes.
To quietly fund politics behind the scenes. So these are the donors that sometimes if you were to look up a politician on Open Secrets, you won't see their name per se. They're basically funding these politicians through other organizations, sometimes these nonprofit organizations. So you'll see like the organization, and then you'll see the two columns that says individuals and a column that says PAC. And so under PAC, it'll say 0, but under individuals, it may say like $5,000. And so you're like, oh, okay, individuals who worked for that organization donated $5,000 to such and such politician. Maybe, or maybe this is what's happening. Maybe you have like a Pierre and you have a George Soros and they're actually donating, having money donated to those organizations, thus still donating to the politicians. George Soros, he donates to the Sunrise Movement. So if you have a politician that is funded by the Sunrise Movement or they have some kind of donation from them, that money could have came from George Soros. You don't know. This is their way of keeping their way out of it. So you don't see their name there because then they can't say, those politicians can't say they're grassroots if they have Pierre's name listed as a donor.
Add to that $10 million from Omidyar's Democracy Fund, another foundation with a lobbying arm, and it becomes clear the left has discovered how to funnel billions of tax-exempt dollars into political causes. This helps them elect Democrats and make policy while reaping the financial rewards meant for genuine philanthropy.
Now, I would say this could be happening with Republicans too. I don't think this is just something that happens with the Democratic Party. But the thing is, those funds that are supposed to go to these charities and these philanthropies, most of these funds apparently are not making it that way. That money is being funneled to politicians. This is why to this day, this is why I don't donate to charities, because when I found out that about the Red Cross, I was just like, yeah, won't be donating to that. No. Terrible.
Charity and activism are not necessarily the same things. But Pierre Omidyar, like other leftist billionaires, has been quietly helping blur the lines behind the scenes to help one political ideology succeed while damaging what charity was originally designed to do.
And I don't think it's just, again, I don't think it's just Democrat billionaires. Billionaires are billionaires, period. They have class solidarity.
Help people, not politicians, in need.
So that's a little bit there about Pierre. A lot of people have not heard of him. You know, he doesn't seem to be as much in the spotlight as Zuckerberg and yeah. But all I'm saying is that I think if The Intercept wants to be fully independent, they are going to have to distance themselves from Pierre or any billionaire for that matter. Because you see what Pierre's up to. So that's that. That's right, Yep X. Billionaires should not exist. Agree. I mean, we can't say it's okay because it's only 15%. It's okay because that's not what Bernie would have said. Like when Bernie told us about the billionaires and complained about the billionaires, he wasn't like, it's okay if you get 20% or 15%. You see what I'm saying? Like, no, it's a problem, period. So that's that. Hopefully, Aaron and Ryan can work that out. I don't know. I do not know.